Aronok, say a thing.
Hello.
Why do we
All
want
right,
to? Am I not allowed to say something? Well,
no, Harry, you just listen for a bit because
yeah, and then
I promised Aronok a thing for this episode.
Okay.
I promised that I would share a little fun fact about Cyprus history that I believe Aronok will greatly enjoy. So, um, one of the most important historical figures of recent Cypriot history is a general who founded and commanded the resistance militia group uh, against the British occupation of Cyprus, of like that lasted like 50 years or something like that, like a really long time. Um, so yeah, it was an army general that did that. Aronok, can you guess what his name was?
I have no clue. And I feel like any guess that I could make wouldn't be adequately absurd. So, Darkfry, what is his name?
His name was General Grievous.
Good. Yes. No notes. Perfect.
No, really? No.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, how do you Google this? You can't Google this. I was going to say I'm going to Google it, but you can't.
So
this
for the last year and a bit, we've like I've mentioned this. We've talked about this a few times. I've been working on this giant Star Wars project. It's been mentioned probably in at least every second episode of Video Gems at some point for the last year and a bit. It's releasing like in a week, the next couple of days.
Oh,
it will be out by the time this episode is out, so go watch it. And if you haven't watched it, and if you have watched it already, go watch it again.
I'm really proud of it. It was way too much work. I did do an entire 16-minute film.
So that little tidbit is one of the reasons why a lot of Cypriots falsely claim that George Lucas was part Cypriot himself.
Wait, is this real?
Yes, he is not part Cypriot. They are confusing him with George Michael, who was part Cypriot. But
that's true.
George Lucas not Cypriot, although yes, there was in fact a Cypriot general who did some very important shit in Cyprus, and his name was General Grievous. So
were his parents like a fan of Star Wars then?
No, he was like he was like in the 40s and 50s.
How many swords did he have?
I constantly learn new things that make me more annoyed when people are like, George Lucas was too on the nose, and it's like literally just references to actual politics. Like, again, I just made a 5-hour and 48-minute video about why Star Wars as a political work absolutely bungles everything. But like to say that the issue with George Lucas is too on the nose dialogue, and I'm like, that isn't believable when it's literally based on shit politicians were saying at the time, it kind of drives me up walls.
Like, after finishing this, because I'm working on a giant Evangelion video right now, and that is a series which will genuinely just straight up take moments to look straight up at the camera and be like, this is the point. This is the thing I'm telling you. This is what you need to take away and understand. Do you get it? Okay, good, cool. We're moving on now. And I have had to sort through literal decades of forum threads of people just being, yeah, but I mean, didn't they kind of deserve it?
So this is...
I have a perfect example of this, which is something I bring up in the video, but it's like really briefly in like 1 or 2 lines. But Scott Pilgrim, the most unsubtle, explicit like, this white man has issues and is bad and needs to change story. The comic literally has, like, graphs in his head
it's
about
only,
why
like,
he's
one
bad.
step removed from, like, Chick tracks.
Yeah, like, it's absurd. It's absurd how obvious Scott Pilgrim is terrible. And then, like, shitty dudes, because they think being pervy to high schoolers is perfectly okay, don't get the criticism. And then other people say that Scott Pilgrim is a work that, like, aggrandizes those types of dudes. And I'm like, a crumb of media literacy, please.
Guys, Scott Pilgrim is problematic.
And my favorite thing is that Brian Lee O'Malley got so sick of this shit that he pretended he was adapting the comic into an animated show just so he could write, like, basically an end of Eva fuck you to the where Scott gets punched out in the first episode and the rest of the series is a commentary on why Scott's actually the worst.
I know writers who use subtlety and they're making a mistake. They need to be as sledgehammer blunt force as they can possibly be.
So here's the thing, I genuinely agree with that, right? I do not like subtlety. I am a maximalist. So
well, I mean, you like anime, don't you, Darkfire? So
yeah, okay, yeah, so that's the thing. I genuinely agree with that. I genuinely find I think subtlety is overrated.
I think the issue with it is the idea that subtlety and unsubtlety are incompatible.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I joke about the, like, I know writers use subtlety and they're all cowards bit, but the actual thing is that, and I think my videos are very much about trying to demonstrate this, is having the explicit and the subtle at the same time. And so that there's these layers of analysis that you're engaging with, because it then, like, cascades. I find the subtlety cascades upwards into the unsubtle and, like, adds more complexity. So, like, the Star Wars video that Jesse and I made, we were very much trying to, and I think we succeeded, and based on a lot of the feedback from people who have watched the animated sections, did succeed in recreating the sort of slightly stilted, a little bit clunky, but, like, the actors are making it work dialogue of Star Wars that's very explicit. But there's a fuck ton of stuff that I don't say explicitly, and I'll be talking about, like, the director's commentary when Jesse and I do that. But for example, like, the main character that I play, I very specifically drew her in clocky ways. I never explicitly state she's trans. I never put anything in that says this character is trans. But if you know Gendy's art style rules, you can tell by the fucking atoms when I added in, which is something I'm dysphoric about on my own body, that the character is trans. And so there's a sub-layer. There's an explicit layer where I'm critiquing Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but there's a sub-layer where I'm critiquing the heroine's journey. And the story structure that this character goes on is functionally a story that uses Joseph Campbell's monomyth as the starting stages and then transitions to the heroine's journey, and then that falls apart at the end because both structures are traps, and, like, I wanted to play with a lot of layers. So it's super explicit, but there's also a shit ton of stuff that's not explicit. Or for example, the trans character having a girlfriend that's, like, never like, you don't really get to see her directly on screen until she's dead because the monomyth kills women, and, like, yeah, I want layers.
I think I genuinely, it's an obvious pick to pull from, but I do feel like Disco Elysium is very illustrative in this regard, because that, yes, again, another story, blunt force, that is screaming at you what it's about, what it believes, what it wants you to take away. However, once you work past that and begin to, like, kind of, like, pull back the layers and, like, parse out, like, motivations and implications and all of that, you find so much more nuance and subtlety underneath the surface. I think subtlety is one of those things that it's a vital ingredient to making something that's very rich and nuanced, but it gets overstated in terms of its importance relative to just making sure that people know what the hell you're saying.
Yeah, I think And I think the perfect example of this is those types of works where, like, the person basically just goes, ambiguity! And then they're like, and I'm an auteur, I'm a brilliant genius for this. And
I think of Neil
and they don't
Breen
even know
with
what
like
they're
the
saying.
doll heads
They
in
don't
the
even know what
desert.
they're saying. I have another example of a work that is aggressively unsubtle and then also super subtle at the same time, Pathologic. Like,
I didn't want to be the one to bring it up. I didn't want to be the one. For the record, I didn't bring it up.
Sorry, no.
Ruby,
I've not
there is
heard
no
of this
episode-
game before. I've not heard
There's
of
no
Pathologic.
episode
Could
I
you
haven't
explain to me what
mentioned
this
it
game is?
The brainworms are bad. The brainworms are bad.
I don't think you brought it up before.
If you don't know what Pathologic is, I might have a way for you to find out.
Ruby, wait. You're getting a bit ahead. Welcome to Video Gems. Hello.
Hello.
Wait, yeah.
Hello!
I
And
messed
welcome
up.
to Video
I messed
Gems.
up. I
It's
messed up
Okay,
my
I
stream
did an
Great.
impression. It's fine.
podcast. Hello, welcome to Video Gems, the Eric Andre show of podcasts. I am your host.
Nice, nailed it.
I'm gonna be your Hannibal Burrs.
I feel like
Just
that makes sense.
unflinching, unreacting the entire time, and that's part of the bit.
I am your host, Dark Fry, God's most kissable soldier, and today with me, my wonderful co-hosts once again, Harry from Video Games Are Bad, and Aronok, who is on the patient's seat this time, because our guest today is Ruby. Ruby, introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, I am Ruby Seals. I run the YouTube channel Codex Entry. I am currently recovering from Sam Plague. I do video essay things. I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
It's art!
I was gonna have like the Game Awards wrap it up thing.
Oh yeah.
It was-
You've got like the custom
I still-
VTuber.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
right, I'm also working on a
Is it-
game right now.
Yes, you are.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
no, I
Wait,
don't
what?
want to overstate my involvement, but like I am helping out with like some game design feedback, and I'm doing trailers and all of that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome!
yeah.
Hell yeah!
Very
I didn't.
cool.
I
Keep
didn't
an eye
even
out
know
for it.
about that. Nice.
Yeah, no. I'll
Okay,
send you a link.
so here's the thing, right? There is a very specific reason that I brought on Ruby for this episode of Video Gems. And it has nothing to do with her being a very good friend and very talented video essayist.
Aw.
This episode is an intervention for Aronok. What? So
It's true.
this,
We've been planning this for weeks.
yeah. So this episode is a cleansing, a purge of because the pathologic brainworms have become a problem. And I have decided to do something about it. Because I, as the host of this podcast, I do not want every episode of Video Gems to devolve into being about pathologic. So, we are going to let Aronok get it all out of her system now.
Okay, Darkfry, I want to warn you
need you
right
to
now.
understand
I genuinely want
if
to
this
warn
won't
you.
work.
I genuinely want to warn you that I know you're thinking this is going to be a thing where Aeronaut gets it out of her system and then we move on. What's actually going to happen is the brainworms are now just going to spread to you two, regardless of whether or not you've played it.
Okay.
It just travels.
Look, I
It does.
understand.
We knew
Listen,
the risks involved.
I
We
need to
knew this
understand that
coming.
Ruby's the one who infected me with the brainworms. You haven't you haven't
If I knew
brought
a
me
way
into
to remove
quarantine.
them, they would be gone.
You haven't brought me into quarantine to get rid of the Sempest. You've brought in another carrier of the Sempest with me.
There's going to be no survivors here.
Look, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire.
We're rolling a lot of dice, Darkfry. I just want you to know. I just need you to know. I am looking.
So you buy bread, right? That's what you do in Pathologic. You buy bread.
Actually, sometimes, yeah, that is an important plot point.
Bread is very useful.
Also, there's literally a quest you have to get bread for Denny.
Okay, how much does bread? How much do you have to pay for bread on day one?
On day one,
72.
Is it 72?
I'm pretty sure
that's
it's
right.
72. It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
It might be
jumps up to
140.
30.
It might be 140.
Okay.
I think no, because bread's one of the double cost ones, because it jumps to 3,600 on day 2, I think, and then it sits at like 2,700 for some of the days. It's been a while,
right? And there we go. We've done it. Pathologic brainworms.
Yeah, no, this is how rapid fire it is and how subtle it is. You won't even notice. It is pernicious.
It really is. No, I do think that Pathologic is a work that functions kind of like the Sandpost. It just sort of seeps into the ground and in the air into the walls.
And then it kills you. Then you die.
Yes, and then you're reborn. Better than before.
Part of a greater whole.
Part of a greater whole.
Don't you have like... I think this is actually. Do we want to spoil Pathologic? I know what happens.
Yeah.
Don't you like talk to the developers at the end or something?
Okay, so there's 2 conversations at the end. Full spoilers, but big surprise, it's Ruby and I talking about Pathologic. We're gonna go full spoilers. So if you do everything, I think if you heal one of the other people's sets, you get to talk to the powers that be.
Yeah,
and if you heal everybody, you get to talk to the ones who own you, which are the developers. So the first meta layer is talking to the children that are playing a game in a magic sandbox, and you are the subjects of that game.
Right.
It sets you up to be disappointed by the twist, so that it can then later turn around and be
Do
like,
it again.
yeah, we know that was unfulfilling, but why was it unfulfilling?
Right.
You already knew you were a character in a
good.
game.
You already knew you were a puppet. But, like, think
You know
about
what?
who's really puppeting you.
I like
It's
the
the
sound of
developers.
that. How much is Pathologic on Steam?
You
a
can
couple
get it
bucks.
for like $1 when it goes on sale. It is dirt cheap.
That's
goes on
that's
sale
a very
frequently.
reasonable price. What do you think, Duck Fry?
I'm gonna say that I got Pathologic for like $1 on
Single
Steam.
You can't get anything
Yeah.
for $1 these days.
Yeah.
Except Pathologic.
Except Pathologic.
Except Pathologic.
So what else are you going to do with that $1? Ruin your brain.
Nothing. It's
So
just
I
going to
think-
sit there.
I will say, Pathologic isn't perfect, and especially Patho 2 dips into some of the more problematic aspects of one of the primary writer's views. I've seen some interesting articles on that topic. I don't know that, but we're gonna go back to talking about Pathologic because I love it.
Henry's killing me.
So for context, to those viewing who have not watched Ruby's work, Ruby has a series called Pathologic for those who will never play it. It's really good. All of her videos are good. Please go watch all of them. I really like the Grand Guignol one, and nobody watched it. And I'm like,
Yeah, no.
because it's really good. It's really good, like art, theater, history.
I'm not going to let that dissuade me from making like other theater stuff. I have one really big one that I'm very eager to like find someone to collaborate with. Definitely considering it.
Most things I
put a
know
pin in
about
it.
theater, I've learned from Ruby's videos. So
That
Yeah,
is so surreal to me.
Also, Ruby's really been helping with my Undertale script every once in a while. We're just gonna call and talk about it for a couple hours. I'm so excited for that one. Like that's what I want to do next, because I kind of pushed off Usher until I can release it alongside like whatever Flanagan's next project is. Plus that video just got massive. Like I've got to do a lot more research. I need to read a couple of books. I have to dig into the Sackler family, which is going to be
Oh God.
a time. Well, I don't think you can talk about Usher without talking about the opioid epidemic in
no.
depth and the direct influences, but it's just like, yeah, like for context, just the chapter on mental illness is like half the length of Midnight Mass. Like my video essay on Midnight Mass. So I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm pushing it back. But Undertale, I'm really excited about. And a lot of I'm definitely doing things that are unique to me with that one. But a lot of the idea for that came from the format that both you and Solmatol use for certain video game video essays, which is sort of, I guess, like almost an experiential journal mixed with video essay, mixed with documentary. It's
basically the way I like to refer to it is effectively like a Netflix miniseries in disguise. I set it up with like opening show. Here's basic context, and then unpack as much of the narrative as I feel I can justify, like putting out there without wasting people's time any more so than I already am.
I like
You're not
an
wasting people's
artistic
time.
walkthrough.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good way of putting it.
good,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it sort of translates the personal experiential aspects of going through the experience of playing the game mixed with the analysis in a really interesting way. And
this is a great thing about making videos on the internet. You can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
like,
follow any kind of specific format or structure. You can just do whatever.
One of my big kind of hardline beliefs is that games, by their nature, are a collaborative medium. Even when the game itself is just made by one person, by virtue of being a player there, engaging with it, and taking up the role of whatever character, inanimate object, whatever, it doesn't matter, thing that the developer wants you to control, you are now in collaboration with the developer, and by virtue of that are improvising your own story. And so with a lot of the videos I make and a lot of the more storytelling focused ones, genuinely what I try and do is just be like, what was first off, what was my story as a player of this game, and what can I do to refine that into a slightly better story that's like actually digestible to like someone who otherwise might not be as invested.
yeah, and there's an interesting balancing act with writing these where you're both thinking about the audience that has played the game and they've got their own story, and the audience that hasn't played the game. And with the Undertale video, I think a lot of it's also just like reconciling with, I think, a work that has been heavily analyzed and completely misunderstood. And for the most part, minus a few good attempts. I think H-Bomb's video is decent, but a little too myopic in its goals and analysis. Like, it's too focused on mapping a singular experience.
It's very focused in on one element,
which is not a bad thing if that's your goal. You know what I mean? And like, he achieves the goal of what he was doing with that work, but it's not the goal that I want to pursue.
His video made a lot more sense back when like people considered 20 minutes to be like really long for a video essay.
Yeah. And then the other one is...
I didn't know H-Bomb guy made an Undertale video in the first place.
It was like 7 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah. Like
I always think of it more as like an Alphys video.
Oh wow. He looks very young.
It's a shorter video. And then Adam Millard's What Was Undertale Actually About, I think, is the closest in attempt to what I'm going to be doing, but I think it and I think it what it does is really well executed. I'm going to be recommending it in the video, but I also think it's limited in some ways, and it lacks the fundamental queer analysis that needs to lie at the center of discussing Undertale as a work, and especially
I think this is a good argument against the whole, like, when usually it's newer creators where they're like, oh, I don't want to make a video about like Undertale or Outer Wilds or third heavily discussed games because everybody else has done it, and it's like,
but have
but everyone else has done it badly.
If I recommended an Undertale video on YouTube, right, I'm probably not going to watch it. If Aronok makes an Undertale video, I am going to watch that. I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. Like,
have they talked about it the way you want to talk about it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And what I'm really excited about it with the way that I'm doing it, because of this sort of as you said, artistic walkthrough sort of style where I'm analyzing everything, and I'm really like, Ruby, you can attest, I'm analyzing everything. But like in a good way, in a meaningful way that I think gives the work what it needs. And the Red for Cheese video kind of became an accidental prequel in some ways, because I'm setting up like a lot of my thoughts on like emotional contrast and the value of that, and the point of humor as like a narrative tool and stuff. Anyway,
accidental prequel is the name of my new band.
That would be the name of the next band. That would be an incredible post-rock band. I would watch them live, sight unseen.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
But,
actually.
Opening for Mogwai.
But yeah, I'm really excited to do that video, and specifically just because like the conversations that you and I have had, Ruby, have like brought out, I think, a really unique angle on it. And yeah, I think one of the interesting things about video games as a medium, and what I'm touching on in there, is that you don't experience everything. Actually, very specifically, most games are designed in a way where you're not supposed to experience everything. Undertale actively tells you to not seek out experiencing everything. And I find that so fascinating. And Pathologic is similar because, like, my experience with Pathologic is going to be very different from most people's, because Pathologic broke my brain, and now I'm the god of Pathologic.
Yeah, because you're a god gamer. Because you're a god gamer. It's like
finishing the game with 600,000 money.
No, again, this is okay. So this is one thing that like I feel like a lot of people don't get, and I admit that I was part of the problem on this, but like I did my best to kind of like dispel it at the end of the Bachelor route. Is that like Pathologic is a very hard game the first time you play it and have no idea what you're doing. Every time after that, it is genuinely one of the easiest games I've ever played. It's tedious,
so relaxing.
It's slow, but it's also very relaxing, and like, but most of the stress and anxiety comes from what's happening in the narrative with the characters and all of that, less so than, oh, I need food. And it's one of the areas where I think like Pathologic 2 unambiguously improved it, because that's a game where like I have to fight for resources, and I'm always worried about that.
Pathologic 1, I think the strength of Pathologic 1 is it's alien.
Yeah,
like it's alien to a lot of game ethos.
It looks really strange, right?
It feels like you, because Patho 1, the first time you play it, and you should play it first as Daniil, you are an outsider, very fundamentally. You and Daniil are thus sharing this experience of being outsider and not understanding the world. And if you finish Daniil's route successfully, you win the game, as it were. Win. There's not really a nice ending, but it's Pathologic. Welcome to Pathologic. I prefer winning.
Winning.
Some player, I'm not going to spoil that.
But I've mentioned that line a few times on the podcast. When I was doing this, I streamed the entire game to Twitch as like sort of digital busking. I was voicing all the characters. That was a really interesting experience, because it took Pathologic from playing a game to being a theater troupe. Like, and I know you have a similar feel towards it, Ruby, but it was really interesting because I was voicing everybody as different voices, and it was. When you were on the stream, we were talking about this, but there's sort of an aspect of the dissonance of like John Mulaney.
Yeah, like what is Bennett Foddy doing here?
Yeah, what is Bennett Foddy?
I am still not over. I will never forget Daniil Dinkovsky Bennett Foddy. It was genuinely one of the best things I have ever heard. It's so amazing.
I mean, these are the strengths of theater of the absurd. That's literally one of the things they would do, is like cast someone who's deliberately like, that person is not supposed to be playing this role.
Yeah,
they are not supposed to be there, and that makes you lean in and pay rapt attention to literally every syllable falling out of their mouth, because it's fascinating.
And it was funny because I think you described it as this was probably the best execution of Pathologic as theater of the absurd. And I was like, thank you.
So Dark
Teachers,
Friday.
You're welcome.
But yeah, Benefati as Daniel was wild because he'd just be saying stuff like, one sec. Do you suggest that I select a easier enemy? No, this is not my style.
Cursed.
Darkfire, I think this plan of yours may have backfired a bit.
Oh no, this is increasing the brainworms.
It took
You brought
less
them
than
back.
10 minutes. Less than like 10 minutes before we got to exactly where I warned you, Darkrai. Exactly where I warned you we would be.
Look,
I think you've made a mistake.
have
I
though?
tried to save you. I tried to save
Listen,
everyone.
Harry, this is good television.
This is good television, mate, right? It's really good television.
This podcast
Me
is
locking
truly
myself in
theater
the
of
plague
absurd.
house. Oh, this is going to be some great YouTube. This is going to be
Yeah.
a
No,
No,
fantastic
seriously,
Twitch
when I
stream.
was doing the stream, I was expecting the like plague house to be a nightmare where I'd have to like do it over and over again, and I was just like, I was really like psyching myself up before going in, but I was like, this is gonna be great YouTube, like people would be very entertained by me being tortured by this. I go in there, first fucking try, no save scumming. I did it perfect. I was just dancing around all of
So, like, that-
and I walked out and I was like, do you doubt me now? I am the god of pathologic. And the
That
people in
room
chat
is
were like,
such
"Play the
a
game."
is another like perfect microcosm of like Pathologic is very hard on your first playthrough. All of the ones after become exponentially easier.
Astronomically easier.
Because like I wasn't hyperbolizing in the video. The first time I got locked in there, it genuinely took me like an hour of resetting to get out of there
Yeah.
without being
Same,
infected.
same.
But after playing the rest of the game and doing the other routes and then coming back to it, I haven't got infected there once because I now know what the plague hitbox is and how much of the cloud I can walk into without getting caught. So nothing can catch me now. I just walk by all of them. I'm always safe.
I just love picturing Daniil like
Plague
fucking
hitbox.
Yeah.
bullet timing through a plague clouds.
That was me on
Be
stream
gone,
doing
plague.
it. I
It's doing the laser dodging from like Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
it
the
was
museum.
so wild. It was such an experience to do that and like be like, oh, because I was kind of like when I started the stream, I was joking around about being the god of pathologic, and then as the stream kept going on, I was like, oh no, I'm actually doing that. Because I was just like dancing through the entire game.
Like, yeah, it's honestly it's basically like watching a speed run, but it's not really fast like a speed run, but
Just
you're
someone who's
watching
good.
someone doing things they're not supposed to. like you know when you're watching
Game-breaking.
Breath of the Wild and suddenly
It's-
Link bops a bokoblin on the head with his shield and flies millions of miles in the air.
It's competency porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's competency
Yeah.
porn is what it is. Like watching and I'm saying that just based on the shit that people were saying in my chat. Like the thing
Yeah.
that they were getting from me doing it that way was competency porn.
Competency porn is also the name of my new band.
Like I love someone who never watched any of my essays, didn't know who I was, who just like came in because I was playing Pathologic. And their increasing incredulity at like me just easily going through the game. They're like, "How are you? What? How is this possible? How do I learn this power?" And I'm just sitting there
I
like,
wonder how many people
Estrogen.
came in in that stream and they were like rubbing their hands and licking their lips being like, I cannot wait to see this person discover the horrors of Pathologic. And
then meanwhile I'm like, look at my happy step.
Oh, this game's easy now.
Well, and the thing is that like by the time I played through
Brace
the first
yourselves,
6
everyone.
days.
Aronok said for context.
I
Maybe
played through
mean.
the first So I played through the first 6 days, kind of haphazardly over a period of time. Often by like hanging out with Ruby and Cloak or something earlier this year, and then I had the idea for the stream, and because I needed to raise money, I wanted a game that I thought would be entertaining in some way and like would be engaging for chat and that I could perform stuff for. And I considered a few, and then I was like, maybe I'll do Pathologic, but if I'm going to do that, I want to finish Daniel's Route off stream and enjoy it first. And so I started playing, and I was like, oh, I'll do like one day and night, like one in-game day a day for a week. And then I just did 7 through 12 in a single evening without sleeping, and I was just like, the game's easy now. Something has magically clicked in my brain.
No, something happens, I think, to people's brain if they can get past Willow. That at that point, not only have you learned all of the base mechanics, but you are now prepared for just how hard the game will go on you.
It's when the worms get real nice and comfy.
Yeah, no,
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
What?
Oh, please don't say my brain was just doing intrusive thoughts of like, there's worms in your brain.
So if we had to turn Pathologic into like an esport, okay, that's like on the fucking like international stage or whatever.
Okay.
How do we do that?
Pretty
First off-
easy. You have
Pretty
to.
easy?
You so here's I think the rules for Daniel Route Esport Pathologic. 1, you have to complete every quest.
Okay.
2, the scoring is based on how much money you're able to accumulate by the end of day 12.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say this is kind of turning into speedrunning. This is not what I'm after.
So you
esports,
can't. It's
right?
not about
I'm
going.
after
It's
scoring.
not about going as fast
I'm
as
after
possible.
winning.
It's about winning.
It's about winning.
The funniest part of that stream was after I finished Daniel's Route, I played Marble Nest as like a little finale, a little encore, because I'd finished it faster than I'd expected because I was just like doing really well, and everyone in chat kept being like, the whole point is that you have to accept you can't win. You can't win. And then I beat death, and I was just like, what did you say to me, chat? I'm the one who wins.
The video game.
I was very unhinged. I'd been awake for way too long and been streaming way too much that week for the end of that stream.
Marble Nest is a lot of fun.
Marble Nest is so fun because I love how the entire thematic point and like so much of the elements of it is there's just continuously saying like, you can't win. You can't win. Like, it's all about accepting that you have to let go. And then you can just be like, no.
I defy
I
you,
refuse
Death.
the rules of the game. I refuse the rules of the game. And Death's like,
Well, shit.
Oh.
fuck.
Well, I guess that settles that. Have a good one.
And it's so funny because like I'd watched your video, but like playing it, and I have bad memory, so I often forget like details like how to get in and things like that sort of stuff. Just kind of, that's the stuff that doesn't tend to retain. The stuff I tend to retain is more the like emotional stuff and the like media analysis stuff, and less the like plot point beats. And so, but playing it, I realized just like I was continuously getting these hints about like question the rules of the game you're having to play. And I kind of love how Pathologic as a game series is often trying to get you to question systemic
Yeah, I guess
factors
you
in your
kind of
life.
love it.
Pathologic, like, as a whole, is deeply skeptical of literally all systems, be they game rules or social norms or political systems. It has an intense, like, hesitation to just grant complete authority to any of those.
Nice.
That makes sense. I mean, it breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah. It breaks the fourth wall. It basically did Pathologic start a lot of like convention breaking, immersion breaking?
Not really,
Trends
because no one played
that
it.
sticks,
No one
right?
played it in the West.
Yeah.
No, I do think that it has an outsized impact on certain types of developers in the indie space because people did play it in the West. It was kind of like I can't remember who it is that's talked about like that one review that was really influential to them. I think it might have been H Bomber Guy. So there
Rock,
are
Paper,
developers
Shotgun
that
review.
have
the Rock, Paper,
Shotgun.
Shotgun, yeah.
There are developers who have been influenced by it, but I would
Why
say
did I know that?
Pathologic, just like Undertale, is often misattributed as the progenitor of things it was a continuum of, because a lot of people just don't know these more obscure things from the 90s and early 2000s, because unlike the thriving indie scene of today, where indie hits can be big, a lot of indie hits way back in the day were like niche things that only certain people knew about. And like writing Undertale, I have an entire section where I basically explain that like Undertale isn't this magical original thing, and it's not claiming to be. It wears its, all of its influences very directly on its sleeve, but like it's interesting watching people claim it was like nothing had ever done any of this before, and I'm like,
That's
dude,
lineage
it's
goes all the
basically
way.
an
Earthbound
the
ROM
reason-
hack.
Yeah,
It's
Toby
another
Fox is-
Earthbound ROM hack, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's fine.
But it's important to acknowledge that like the Mother series is right there.
Well, the Mother series is
there.
out there, but also like Toby Fox is indirectly the reason, like is part of the reason why Moon Remix RPG was translated into English recently. I'm not even kidding. Dead serious. Like that, and that game had a huge influence on Undertale and on Toby Fox as a game designer. And it came out in the 90s. Like it wasn't, and it's not an unknown game completely. So there's a ton of stuff off, right? If you just narrow it down to games about like a twist around you murdering everybody and disconnect between the player and the character because of violence, and it being made in RPG Maker. Off was there first. It already did it in 2007, and Toby Fox knows about that game, and there's a ton of crossover in the fandoms. And I'm not saying, like, I want to be clear, I think Toby Fox does deserve a ton of praise. I just think it's kind of frustrating, and I think Toby would agree, based on how much Toby likes shouting out the influences that have influenced him, that like you should also recognize that this is a part of a lineage that's commenting on, like, a huge part of the ruins section of the essay, and you know this, Ruby, is about, like, it rests on the ruins of a bunch of older games, literally.
No, I think like the most concise way I think we could sum this up is know your art history. And games, of course, are art, so this, of course, applies to games.
Like,
know your art history.
We were talking about Bennett Foddy earlier, and in getting over it, a lot of the backing monologue of Bennett Foddy is about this weird, obscure indie game that no one knows called Sexy Hiking, that basically it inspired getting over it, and stuff like that is great. Like,
to recommend a channel that covers these types of things, Chariot Rider, French.
You are not
loves it.
recommending Chariot Rider on
Enough
my
these days.
podcast.
Actively seeks them out.
Chariot Rider is literally
Booming
just someone that
missile,
like
just
runs
"Ooh,
around
I found this the other
trying
day."
to. Yeah, and he'll pop up and he'll be like, "I found this game. Literally, 3 human beings have ever seen it," and you're like, "How, dude?"
No,
And it's amazing. They're always
the
weird
worst-
I just got
and
back
cool.
from Fort Knox. I just found this NES
the worst
cartridge.
thing Chariot does is that he will do that, and then he will have the fucking audacity to be like, "Has anyone played this game?"
Has
Chariot,
anyone seen this?
Chariot,
one's played
you
this,
know
Chariot.
the answer to
Chariot.
that question is no.
Chariot.
You're just being smug.
I love
You're
Chariot.
just being the
I
smug.
love him so
love
much.
Chariot.
He's
We love
such an
Chariot.
amazing person.
But it is so funny when Chariot's like, "Hey, has anyone like played this game? I think it's pretty cool." And it's like a game that literally like 17 human beings have ever played,
It's like-
and
it's like
released in
It's a
like,
game
check
that whose
log.
only copies are in like a landfill in Hungary
Yeah.
in some floppy disk.
But seriously, like, I do think there's a principle that really good writers often talk about, which is that the more obscure your influences are, the more clever you look, and then like, and that's why it's still important to like wear your influences on the sleeve, because it also brings attention to those unique, weird influences and those weirder works that you find, I personally probably need to spend more time trying to find weirder and weirder stuff. But like, I I think sometimes I get a lot of like comments on just like, oh, you the way you write things and stuff, like it's so weird and unique and everything, and I'm just like, is mental illness homestuck is problematic?
I think I'm going to create the Chariot Rider to Gameservatory spectrum of obscurity.
Yes, this is a good idea. So like on the one side we've got like Assassin's Creed,
Yeah.
and on the other side, what is it like? What's that? I can't even say that. The one that like
Comer.
got copyright struck,
Cookies Bustle.
because that one's actually a little bit more well known now
Mentioning it
compared to
can
the
get
others.
stuff taken. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Cookie
We're gonna get taken off the app.
Hustle Cookie. Reverse those words out of B at the start.
Bustle and a cookie, which by the way, Chariot Rider is still salty about this, and I don't blame him. Because he was one of like one. So,
He's like
I
one of
don't know
5
if it's
people.
fair to say he was one of the first people on the scene where like Cookies Bustle was like, he was talking about Cookies Bustle before it was cool. Before the cool kids did it, you know?
Are we starting beef dog fight on the Video Gems podcast? Is this what we're gonna do?
No. I'm not.
It's
gonna
not normally
start...
like this, Ruby. We're normally quite.
No,
you know,
I'm not going to
reserved.
start beef with Chariot. That beef has already been done years ago. So some ordinary gamers, a channel with like
Oh.
more than 1 million subscribers, showed, like, quoted Chariot in one of his videos about Cookies Bustle and blanked out his name.
It's like a Twitter user, and then
Yeah,
they
and
didn't even
then-
give the
and then
name
Twitter,
of the user.
Christ.
just called him a Twitter user. And
Twitter. Look, Chariot Rider is a lot of things, okay?
Yeah.
But the last thing I would call him is a Twitter user.
That-
You could say so
I
much more than
cannot
that.
think of many harsher insults than calling someone a Twitter
Twitter
user.
user,
Like,
especially
I would say
the
that to
only
hurt their
thing
feelings.
worse
It
is
was-
a Reddit
it was-
user.
Reddit.
No, there's worse.
No, I genuinely think about same tier.
Yeah.
No,
maybe.
I think Twitter's worse. So I think Twitter user a couple of years ago would be like, well, pretty much every
Yeah, on
professional
Twitter.
in any art field just kind of has to be on Twitter to some degree. Like a few years ago before Musk bought it. Once Musk bought it, Twitter users didn't.
It's like Twitter user
Yeah.
with like the blue check next to it, and like
Yeah.
No, blue check is fighting words at this point. If you accuse someone of having a blue check mark, like that's you trying to provoke a fist fight. You can get in trouble
Yeah.
for that.
Huh, what a blue check thing to say, huh?
that's-
Say-
I like that
Okay,
you can now hide the blue check on Twitter. I'm pretty
It's
sure
the funniest thing on the
You can
planet. They've been
hide
so
it.
devalued.
it's like actually like a symbol of shame on the
Yeah.
internet.
But
But
if
you
you have
pay
a blue
money
check,
for
I
it.
auto block you. It is that simple.
Yeah, I've
I
got,
don't
like,
even
an
use
extension
Twitter
that
at this
does
point,
it.
but in the rare occasions I log on, if I just see someone with a blue check in my feed, I don't even gone. Bye.
Just
I've
don't-
like
I
automated
never
that
wanna
process.
interact with you.
It's a
You're-
very efficient system.
just in it just
If I do it
instant,
long
like,
enough, I'll get everyone eventually.
Yeah,
And the
like
site
well,
will be almost
the
usable
extension
again.
that I've got, I can literally like look at a tweet that's by a verified user, and then see all of the verified replies, and then refresh the page, and then suddenly just everything is gone. Everything is gone. There's nothing left. It's amazing. It's really good. I've forgotten the name of it.
Incredible. I need that.
so
Blue
anyway,
blocker. There you go.
So-
Blue blocker. I'm not.
so anyway,
not
that
sponsored.
happened, and Chariot's pretty salty about it, and you know what?
We're calling
He's
you out. Whoever
he's
that channel was.
completely right to be salty. That was fucked up.
Credit your
Like
sources.
like Chariot, this is genuinely I'm with you on this. Even
Which
though
is
you're
a first
you're
for
my
anything,
arch
right?
nemesis.
You're with Chariot Rider or something.
Yeah.
That's like that's
Yeah, I
a rare
did-
event.
No, but seriously, like I do think that Like that's really fucked. And also just like you gotta fucking cite your sources. It's really not that hard. I think it is an insult to yourself, to your audience, and to the medium if you're not like doing what you can to avoid plagiarism.
This has become Video Gem's mantra at this point. We've been
saying this way before it became a big topic. Just saying.
We've been saying this. We've been saying this and screaming it from the rooftops since episode 1.
Though I will admit, part of why it was so on my mind when we started the podcast was because a year ago, around December last year, the subject of the biggest videos about this harassed my co-writer. Ruby, you were there for that. You remember?
Oh yeah, no, I remember vividly.
Yeah, there's a lot we haven't talked about publicly and won't, but like, yeah. Gist of it was just the type of harassment he did to the person that called out his plagiarism is not something he's only done once, and he's threatened to involve police against trans women and stuff, but multiple times. Like, bad. Even if it was a lie, even if it was just a like threat to try to get people to be quiet, that's fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And
very
if you don't
bad.
understand why,
Utterly unjustifiable behavior.
That is threatening potential lethal violence against a marginalized person, completely unacceptable. But the point, I don't really want to care about that person, so I'm just like not even bothering to name them. You know who they are. They're already off the internet.
You know who we're talking
about.
They're still technically trending on Twitter.
Their platform is gone, so that's all I care about. And the reason I care about it is not punishment, it's that I don't want them to have access to a space where they can continue doing harm. That's it. I think a lot of people have taken the situation as an opportunity to express some very punitive justice mentalities that they supposedly oppose, and I'm like, what he did was unacceptable, directly harmed me, affected the livelihood and things of myself and my co-writer, because of lies, and I'm saying I don't want him punished and harmed because my politics are consistent. Wild.
Yeah.
You can have standards and actually apply them consistently
That's
forever.
Crazy.
Well,
that's an option. You can do that.
It's wild.
Consistent politics is the name of my new band.
The most unlistenable punk band.
Most of us. But the point is that back then, I'd already had some. So I'd stopped watching that creator because I picked up on because I started watching him because while his delivery was poor and his lighting outfit choices were poor, being a petty bitch, I get to be a little petty bitch for 5 seconds because this person directly harmed us. I can be a petty bitch about it. Why are you sitting like this when you're delivering scripts? Anyway.
Turns out your delivery sucks if you don't write your videos.
Yeah, if you could tell he didn't. I just thought what I interpreted and didn't want to judge as potentially just performance anxiety, etc., was just that he didn't feel the stuff he was writing because he didn't write it, and he just stole it. But the stuff that he stole was good queer theory. It was good writing. Right. Some of it's foundational texts that I just happen to be some of the few that I haven't read, and I've been, they're on my list of things. The Cellulite Closet has been on my list for a while, of things that I want to engage with. So, so I didn't pick up on it right away, but something just felt off, and the way that because I spend so much time writing for other people, so I've learned how to write in other people's voices, and you can tell when someone's voice isn't consistent.
Right.
It's a vibe thing. I don't know how to explain it, but you can tell. And I had the same thing with Illuminati, which is why I watched 3 of her videos, and then I was just you're not citing your sources, and I can tell that someone else wrote a lot of these words, and you don't have any writers attributed. If you pay really close attention, even when I'm doing my best to write in Jesse's style, you'll still pick up on times where Jesse is saying shit that I wrote that sounds like me. Even though Jesse and I try to when Jesse's writing for me as well, we try to adjust it so that it sounds as natural as possible to ourselves. And all of our videos come out of a conversation often where we've sat down and gone, what do we want to talk about? What do we want to say about this topic? What are our thoughts on it? We share those, we understand each other, and it's a very collaborative work. But that's how being a co-writer. And something felt off about Somerton, and then I started, he started inserting those bits where he was actually writing his own stuff, and it was super misogynistic, and I was like, this is bad vibes. I've dealt with enough, misogynistic cis gay men to know where this is going. I'm done. I stopped watching. And then him and his co-writer put out this abysmal podcast about asexuality that directly said that ace people don't experience violence or bigotry.
Ah.
And I was pretty mad because I'd heard about it. So I watched like 5 minutes, and I was just like, it was, you know, that meme where the person's pulling the headphones off with disgust? That was me. And so, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a little digging. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. While I'm doing this digging, James starts harassing my co-writer and a bunch of other queer women. And so I found a bunch of the plagiarism, and I just been like, I shared it where I could, but I didn't have a Twitter at the time because I'd already deleted it. Like, there wasn't a ton of places to share it in. So there's a few video essayist spaces that did know and have known for a year. And so like when H-Bomb's video dropped, it was just like, all of us were like, oh yeah, this is the thing Aaron talked about 6 months ago. But,
Yeah.
So this is kind of an open secret for a long time, but everyone's just like,
Yeah.
H-Bomb's gonna cover
no.
it, so why the fuck should I bother?
Yeah. I think that was like the attitude, wasn't it, going around?
But we've been talking about, since episode 1 of this show, the importance of those plagiarism things, and it's always been something that I find important, is that you need to cite your sources, you need to be having integrity. I care a lot about ethics. I was certified as a coach ethics trainer for like Canadian coaching stuff. Like I care about ethics a lot. And I especially care about ethics in research and data because I come from a research background. I worked in computer science research. Like this stuff matters to me. And so I find it really funny that it's kind of come full circle now because everyone's talking about this right now. And I'm just like,
Everyone's talking about this, and
Right.
video
It's like,
essayists are panicking about if they are doing it, about if they're doing it correctly. I'm like, I've seen people be like, am I citing my sources
Yeah, this is
correctly?
kind of
Right.
weird.
No,
am
Like,
I-
you've had to sort of clarify your steal shit
Yes.
mantra. You're like,
Yes.
hang on,
It-
not like that.
having been around the video essay space for kind of a hot minute now, this video does genuinely feel like a sea change. It does feel like
Yeah.
a moment where
Oh, yeah.
an entire community and the audience all step back and are like, okay, what the fuck are we doing here? What are we
remember who
doing
it
here?
was?
What standards do we want to have for each other and
Yes.
ourselves? Do I really want to support a content creator whose only like claim to fame is the fact that they found a way to churn out something new 3 times a week that I don't know where they're getting it from because they don't cite any sources, or rather, they cite it in a completely illegible, nonsensical way where it's just, here's a link in a bucket,
There's
take it
a
out,
paste
good luck.
bin.
Yeah, and
So
it's like,
I did a stream like a week ago. I had Skyan, like TB Skyan, on for a bit as well. Like we were chatting about this, and then just like a lot of other essayists came through in the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat. Like Pamphleteer was there, and like a bunch of other like creators that do good work and do actually cite their sources and stuff. Legal Kimchi, for example, who is a lawyer and knows what he's fucking talking about and makes sure to do that stuff properly. But we were having a conversation as a community because I think discussing these standards needs to go beyond just cite your sources. Like, obviously cite your sources. This should have been baseline. You should have fucking learned this in high school. Like, I'm sorry. You should have learned this in grade 6 when you get a 0 because you didn't cite your sources properly. Like, I'm kind of baffled by it because, like, to me, every time I watch someone, I'm like, you're not citing your sources. Where's that claim from?
Yeah, I think
it instantly puts my hackles up because of those experiences and because of how much like ethics training I had to do in research stuff to be like.
So here's the thing, right? Like 2 years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, at some point, I made a Twitter thread where I said, like, as advice to other video essayists to do this, to like to not be afraid to take inspiration from other creators and cite them as sources, and sort of like have other people's work elevate your own art and stuff. The thing we've been talking about since episode 1 of this podcast, and the way that I humorously phrased it was, please steal shit. And I had to go back to be like,
hang on.
no, not like that.
Not like that.
That wasn't what I
Yeah,
meant.
no, I think
James, no.
take influence and build what. But the thing is, and I think this podcast exemplifies this because this podcast exists out of community. Like, we are all in spaces with each other and with the other creators that have been on this podcast and other episodes, and like, a thing that stands out to me is when creators clearly don't have art community. Like, that was another thing that stuck out to me about James, especially as a queer artist. Like, it's really weird when you're never, ever, ever interact with anyone else, because like,
Right.
and I'm sure you agree with this, Ruby, as someone who studies a shit ton of art history. Like, good art comes out of the collision of different ideas, the interaction with different people. And what's fucking wild
The
is Jesse
marketplace of ideas.
Jesse and I, like a year and a bit ago, wrote this entire video about Star Wars, and a big point we make in a chunk of it is that, like, the idea of the great man myth, right? This idea of the monolith of a singular person is total bullshit. What good art, good anything comes out of is the interactions between different people who have respect for each other and build off of each other's stuff.
It's one of those things where it's like, I very much agree with the core of what's being said there, and I do not think it's any coincidence that, like, because I've been doing video essays for a long time at this point, but I also think most of my early stuff is bad. I think it's bad, and I recognize that every video essayist I've ever talked to has been like, oh, it's 2 years old, I discard it. Please do not associate me with that. But like,
I don't. My early stuff rules.
The one exception, and you're right, Darkfry, you hold that trophy. But anyways, but like, I don't think it's any coincidence that my stuff got to a standard of quality that I'm still content and happy and proud of the moment I began to collaborate.
Yes,
but
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Like, I do think that's an absolutely essential ingredient to making the best stuff you could be making, and likely the kind of stuff that, frankly, if you're listening to this, you want to be making. If you have a creative spark, there is only so much creativity you can mine out of yourself.
Yeah.
But working collaboratively, so much more, and so much more unexpected can come out.
With like
working
multiple sources of inspiration as well, not just like one channel.
Yeah.
Like drawing as much as possible from as many different places.
And then making it your own.
Yes.
H-Bomb talks about the yoink and twist, and I like that's a concept that has been described in a billion different terms for thousands of years of art analysis and art theory and discussion, because like
Yoink
we
and
are
Twist is the name of
always
my new band.
No, it's not funny the fourth time. You gotta stick with 3, Darkfry. Come on, I know this.
You brought the
I
rules
just
of
keep-
storytelling. No,
Know the rules.
I just keep
But-
coming up with these great band names, man. What
but
am I gonna do?
the point being that, like, you can only do, you're not an island, and you can only do so much as by yourself, and you can only do so much with
You don't know
only your experiences, and it's way better to be consciously engaging with building up of stuff. You know, like I talked about like Ruby and I like influencing each other on scripts by just like sitting in calls and talking about the scripts and what we're doing with the scripts and why we're doing it. It just, I don't know. And Ruby, I think your channel really exemplifies collaborativeness with like Clark and Haley and so many other people that are involved.
Like I've been working on this end of Ava video, and this one I very deliberately put together this video as like, okay, I love collaborating with people. I want to take a bit of a break from collaborating with people, see where my own strengths lie, and also just talk about a thing that I know no other human being alive will be half as invested in as I am. But like, I am so desperate and eager to get back to do, like, I've already talked with several people. The first thing I'm doing right after this is I already have like 5 people I want to bring on board, because I know I can't do it on my own. I know, not only do I know I can't do it on my own, I know it will be made exponentially better by having a broad palette of different perspectives that frankly disagree with me. And I think that is a very important thing, and something that we stand to see more of is just like, because I like the Signalis video. I don't know who's seen it, but like one of, if for anyone who hasn't seen that, it's a narrative recap, and then right as I'm about to do my analysis, Haley Solmatal comes in and steals the mic, and then gives her analysis, which I do not agree with at all. Like, even now, I kind of get it. I understand where she's coming from. I do not think she's wrong, but it is very much not my reading.
You don't think she's wrong, but you don't think she's not wrong.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. And,
Well, I think
so,
a perfect example of this, though, is like Jesse and I, when we were writing the video on Strange New Worlds, just in the most respectful way possible, totally disagree about one of the episodes. Completely. And we fucking published that disagreement as a disagreement in the video.
yeah, no.
And it's the only time
and
that I
think
voiced
that's
something in my
engaging.
writing.
I
in
think
that
it's
video.
interesting.
It's good.
And I think
It's
it
good.
spawns good insight and discussion that wouldn't have otherwise. Like, again, the Signalis video, to me, the core point of that video was not that, oh, Solmatol is right, or I'm right. It's that nobody's right because it's about what you can read into it and what you see in it.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I touch on in this video, because I'm talking about Stardust in a very, very positive way, and Matthew Vaughn's a piece of shit. I wanted to be like very careful about how I approached that, and so, you know, I very explicitly talk about like his politics are terrible. I'm going to mention where it comes up in the film, but I still like the film a lot, and I still get this specific thing from it
Yeah.
that I don't know if it was the intent.
And
And
this
I don't
also
know if I'm
comes up.
defending.
This will also come up in my Persona 4 video. Look forward to that because, goddamn, I currently feel like the
oh yeah,
greatest
Persona
writer
4
in
is
the world.
wolf.
By the way, I've been on a roll.
That's
Feel like
always the
fucking-
best.
Yeah.
That's the best part of doing video essay stuff. It's just like when you get in that flow state, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, my brain is huge. I'm going to savor this until the moment I hit a roadblock and just spiral.
There is nothing quite like Ruby saying my brain is huge
brain
in the
is
one video.
huge.
In the one video has just been stuck in my brain, and it will just happen anytime I
My
write something that I really
brain
like or something. I'm like,
huge.
my brain is huge. Like, it's the echolalia. It's the autistic echolalia. Because
I have gray matter coming out of my ears.
But yeah, like genuinely,
It's overflowing out of every orifice.
even on the videos where it's so just me doing it for the most part, I get feedback because I'm like, and even Eva, I gave some feedback. He
Yeah.
asked me for feedback and read it
Have
to me and
someone
stuff.
read your scripts.
Yeah,
Yes,
have
I've
and read
already
your scripts
told-
to people.
I've already told both of you that you will give feedback on my Persona 4
Well,
video.
actually, I want to add to this. Asterisk. Have someone read your scripts and give them permission to be mean to you.
Yes, yeah, and
Give
you
them
need to pick the
permission
right
to be
people.
mean.
And
Yeah.
you need to pick people that can like. I genuinely think, and I mean this in as nice a way as possible. You're going to have a very bad time trying to make any form of
Yeah.
art if you can't stand any pushback. I come from a competitive athletics background. Like I was a really competitive athlete for a very, very long time, and I like harsh criticism, which is why like I think sometimes people can take me when I see criticism of me that I think is bad, I will fucking tear it apart because I think it's bad and I think it's poorly worded. But it's important to understand I do love criticism. Like my coach once got like people got mad at him for being too harsh towards me, and then he was like, "I'm so sorry. I thought it was like what I was doing is fine." I was like, "What? Why would I have an issue?" Like it was. Like it didn't even register to me because I like that type of communication and I like directness, and so yeah, like I think you need to have people that can give you feedback in that way in private because you're gonna have a way better time of it than if it's random people commenting on your video when it's released.
Yeah.
You
Like,
can
see,
get it.
I'm too
you can
nice
get it
is
as a
the
dot
problem.
comment or like 50 comments beneath the video. Those are your choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, there's a big difference between someone who cares about you being like, listen, you're fucking wrong.
Not sure
And
about
someone-
this one, Chief.
Yeah, I get what you were going for, but it's wrong, and here's why, and, like, I love you, but no. Versus a comment being like, listen here, you dumb asshole.
It all started 10
You are
years.
so, like, because you're gonna get it either way. So why not make the better art and get the feedback in a safe environment that's controlled, where you control when you're getting it and how?
And then you can parry and riposte them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But
that's the
only
thing,
if
is
you
that
time
great art is a conversation. I've talked about the quote, video essays are just a really good conversation perfected. And I like that quote. I don't think it applies to every video essay, but I think it's a nice idea as a general sort of principle, because it's like, it's that thought in the shower 3 days after you had the conversation where like, fuck, I should have said this.
Just that. Yeah,
Like,
that's
yeah.
good. Actually.
that is a lot of video essay writing at times, is the shower thought after you've already had the conversation and you realize you could have said something way better, but then you just say what's better.
And you can just do that. You can just say that thing.
Yeah, and like, I've incorporated stuff where I'm like, I don't agree with this criticism, but I'm going to recognize that it's there, and I think it's worth being aware of. That sort of thing. I just think it's important to be engaging in conversation and in community. And when we come back to these standards thing, it's just like, I think that if you try to make yourself an island, you're going to have a harder time doing a good job. But the other thing that I think is important about those standards when we're talking about feedback is you really, especially if you're one of the professionals that like has money, you should be working as sensitivity readers. You just should. And I think certain authors' certain writers' egos are a little too huge about this topic. And I think Ruby might know who I'm talking about. I think I might have expressed frustration with a very specific person before.
My.
But it's no one we all personally know.
I was gonna say we're not gonna
it's a
see
much
another
bigger-
HBO
it's a
MacGyver
much
video
bigger-
next year about
Guesses
this,
I
are
can
we?
stab at, but I will not.
A little less hubris for those people.
Yeah.
So
The person made a bad video about transphobia in media that I didn't like. Anyway, point
Yeah.
is, like, you should be working with sensitivity readers as much as possible. You're never going to get it perfect. You're never going to get it right. And when you fuck up, you need to be willing to go, oh, I fucked up. How do I learn from this?
yeah,
So I think the big things that I think the video essay space needs to be considering as standards is like, one, a willingness to accept fault. And we have a lot of algorithmic reasons to be like overly confident and dismissive of any criticism, right? Not to mention that, like, I get it. It sucks because we get so much false criticism. We get, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a marginalized woman in other ways. Like, if you're marginalized in other ways, it's a lot. And it can be very hard to hear genuine criticism because it often visually looks like it'll resemble the bad criticism because people are bad at delivering it. But you need to be willing to accept criticism and accept fault when you make it. I've made major mistakes in Matrix's Intrinsically Trans. I incorrectly repeated something that another essayist had said because I just never thought to question it, which is that they'd said the Wachowskis were Jewish, and I just was like, I didn't think to question that. None of my Jewish sensitivity readers thought to question it either. None of the other sensitivity readers that read that document, there's about 23 people, maybe it was 24. Most of them are credited. Some of them asked to have their names not included just because they didn't want to out themselves as queer at the time, and, for good reasons. That are credited as sensitivity readers. None of us caught that because we just didn't think to question it, So that's another thing, is just like willingness to accept fault, willingness to question things, and like really try to make sure that you're sourcing them. Cite your sources. Obviously, cite your fucking sources.
and community's important.
And community's fucking important. And I think that, like, if you can do those 4 things, you're gonna have a lot better time and you're gonna make better art.
Yeah.
I
So-
will add one more thing.
Please do.
Stay ambitious.
Stay ambitious.
Keep chasing
Yes.
ideas that seem unreasonable for you to chase
Yes.
after.
So there's a Japanese game. I think it's called like Power Shovel or something, where you like operate like a tractor and like.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
and at the beginning of every mission, that game's hard as fuck, by the way. At the beginning of every mission, the words "keep ambitious" flash on the screen,
I love
and I
Keep
think
Ambitious. That's
Keep
so
Ambitious.
good.
and I think about that
good.
a lot.
Yeah,
It's
I like
good
that.
advice.
With those words, we're going to be closing for today. I would like to, since we talked so much on this podcast and on this episode about community in creating art, I want to shout out some people who have been very important to my personal creative journey, and I know Harry's as well, and for pretty much everyone on this podcast, and a lot of other people, too, who are not making videos themselves anymore, but still have had a huge impact. Shoutouts to Zolty Boy,
Hell yeah.
and shoutouts to Sid, Leonardo de Sid C, who have basically Zolty and Sid like sort of made the server that
If
a lot
it
of
was
us are
not for Zolty
connecting.
Boy, I would not be here right now talking to
Yeah.
all of you.
Yeah, same.
Connecting like that server connected a lot of video essays together and has been my source of community where I found most people that I am now very good friends with, and most of the guests on this podcast, and Video Gems was Sid's idea, and me, Zolty, and I were the co-hosts originally. But then he left it because of personal reasons, and I have been carrying the torch, so to speak, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very happy, and I'm very proud of the community that has sort of formed because of it, and I love all of you, and it just
No, it's
genuinely I feel very grateful for it.
the end of the
So-
year video. That's part of what I'm touching on, and it's just the gratefulness for community. I talk about
Yeah.
growing up pretty lonely in the 2000s as a queer kid. That
Yeah.
had like a lot of my childhood friends treated me like shit. Some of them have like I the one that didn't I still have contact with, but like pretty much none of the other ones I really talked to. Several of them literally apologized to me in their own words for abuse, like as an adult. So it was only as an adult that I really started finding community as like a queer person and as an artist and like in other ways. And like I've talked about this before, but Harry and I met because Rasputin decided to just do something nice for smaller video essayists.
Yeah.
He said, send in your stuff if you're willing to. Remember when we were talking about willing to let people be mean to us and give us critique? Raz said, if you're willing to have me critique your stuff on stream, send it to me.
Did
and
you know,
I will.
Anok? He's doing that again at the start of the year, which is
Oh,
I
really?
find really, really exciting because I
Really?
I can't wait to sort of see almost like the new
The next
generation
generation.
almost. It's
But-
actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, and like
like
and I know I've chatted with Raz in Discord DMs every once in a while. They're just a really busy person, so I don't want to bug them most of the time. But like and because Harry and I connected, we then Harry, I think you had already joined the Discord that Darfur is talking about, and
yeah.
and then you got me into that Discord, and like yeah, and then like in a bunch of other spaces I've spent a lot of time connecting people and things. Like there are people that describe like in like leftist video essayist YouTube spaces that have described like Bellamy and I as the like backbone behind everything. But like just that communal mindset is so important, and there's so many people that are doing that stuff both overtly in public and quietly in the background. And I think it's so important for people because like the sort of isolated auteur idea I actually think is like really damaging, even if it seems like it's aggrandizing the self. It like I think you kind of damage yourself by not being able to be a part of community.
Very few
Yeah.
people could do it.
Yeah. So
I could name
especially
one.
with
Seek
a
out
craft like this,
community.
where it's like really easy to isolate yourself when you're in the midst of production. Because I have absolutely been deeply guilty of like, yeah, I just worked 2 weeks straight for 16 hours nonstop. I haven't left my room. Editing's going great. I edited 2 hours. I'm happy now.
I'm about to do that because I want to get this video done so I can take a full week off at Christmas
That's
and
where
just spend
I'm
it
at
with my
with
family.
Ava. That's going to be the rest of this year with me and the Ava bit.
If you ever
Wow.
want to sit in a voice call and just like body double while editing for the next week or so, let me know.
All right.
Load.
So, man, this has been amazing. All right. So, with these parting words, we are leaving you today on this episode of Video Gems. In other words, seek out community, support it, be grateful for it. And yeah, any parting words, Ruby?
I think that sums it up pretty well. I think the final thing I think I will say, and I do think this kind of ties into some of the stuff we've been talking about, is do your best to have eclectic taste. Do your best to pull from as many different sources and styles of inspiration as you can. Do not get entirely married to just one genre of anything. Stay ambitious, but also stay curious.
Yeah.
Keep ambitious, keep curious.
I also just want to say, because we were talking about this in the one Discord server, and I think it's worth saying it publicly as well, is that there's this worrying trend I see where market people try to say that you need to have a very specific niche for your channel. And I think one of the worst things you can do, especially if you're a smaller channel, is try to lock into only doing one thing, because you will develop an audience that only watches for the thing and not for your art or your perspective or your voice. Do
That's
a lot of
called
different weird
pigeonholing.
shit, especially early on, and then keep doing
Yes.
weird shit, because you will develop an audience that is interested in what you have to say. Earlier in the podcast, Harry said, if you just showed me an Undertale video on YouTube, I wouldn't be very interested. But when Aeronox says she's doing a video essay on Undertale, I'm excited. I want to see what she has to say. And the reason for that is that, like, Harry likes what I have to say about things. Harry's there for my perspective, not necessarily the work that I'm talking about. And it's vice versa. Most of the games Harry talks about, I have no fucking clue what they are. I'm not there because I'm interested in the game. I'm interested in what Harry has to say. Same with Darkfry. Same with Ruby. I didn't know what the Grand Griot is. I was like, fuck yeah, new Ruby! I get to see what like Ruby and Clark and everybody that is involved in Codex Entry stuff has done and what they have to say. And I think like this idea that you can't be successful like that is absurd, because most of the largest video essayists are like that. Like I think if you're gonna have a niche, have that niche be the goals of your channel, you know, not necessarily subject.
Do not
Like-
box yourself in.
Don't box yourself in.
No.
There's a
Because I
reason
have
why
watched
people
a lot of channels like blow up, do really well after posting like 50 videos about one subject, and then dead
die.
forever.
And leave the platform forever. I've seen so many channels like that have blown up and then just completely disappeared. And if you want us to like keep making art, you need to keep diversifying stuff. And like, hell, I don't just make video essays. I do a lot of different stuff. I just talked about like the animations that Jesse and I are doing. Hopefully by the time this releases, I can technically talk about this. It's probably fine. Like, you know, Jesse and I are currently working on like the full outline of the plots for the TV show that there's a chance we'll get to make, a non-zero chance, because the pilot's already being made at Nebula, a non-zero chance that Jesse and I will get to make this TV show. And like, we're working on audio trauma stuff, and like, just stop seeing yourself as like a little niche, as a content hole that you're supposed to fill exactly, and start
It's
seeing yourself
you.
as an artist.
It's you. You're the person. You're the channel. You're everything.
And that's what I think Ruby's channel
You're the
teaches me
person,
anyway.
and thank you for
So, Doug, you're having
listening
trouble
to Video
sort of
Gems.
closing out this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
we're
am.
done. Bye.
That's a little bit like pathologic. Have you heard of it?